Ready, start. He submitted that testimonies of PW2, PW3, and PW4 are cogent, trustworthy, and mutually corroborative, and that together they establish a complete chain of circumstances pointing only to the appellant's guilt. Counsel emphasized that the case rests on circumstantial evidence and submits that prosecution has successfully proved unbroken chain of circumstances pointing only towards the guilt of the appellants. He pointed out that PW2 overheard the co-accused exhorting the appellants to take revenge. PW3 saw the deceased in the company of Najim and Aftab on the evening of 5/6/2007, and PW4 also identified the appellants later that evening. According to the state, these witnesses were natural witnesses situated at the relevant time and place, and their testimonies inspire confidence. Counsel for the state further highlighted that the rope and axe were recovered from the spot itself, and the postmortem report established that the cause of death was strangulation and that one of the injuries could have been inflicted by an axe. He argued that these facts provide corroborative support to the ocular testimony. Addressing the inconclusive DNA findings, counsel submitted that failure to obtain a complete profile does not absolve the appellants. He explained that forensic results often turn inconclusive due to the degradation of biological samples over time. Therefore, such reports cannot automatically exonerate an accused when other evidence firmly establishes guilt. On the issue of non-mention of the appellant's names in the FIR, counsel submitted that PW1 initially suspected other villagers due to prior enmity, but subsequent investigation revealed the involvement of Najim and Aftab. In his submission, the omission is not fatal when credible witnesses later identified the appellants and linked them to the occurrence. Lastly, counsel contended that the plea of juvenility was rightly rejected by the Juvenile Justice Board and the High Court. He further submitted that the absence of motive is not decisive when the prosecution has otherwise succeeded in proving a consistent chain of circumstances sufficient to sustain a conviction. Having heard learned counsel for both parties and perused the record, principal issue for consideration is whether the prosecution has succeeded in establishing beyond a reasonable doubt a complete chain of circumstances leading only to the conclusion of guilt of the appellants, or whether the circumstances leave room for reasonable doubt warranting acquittal. The present case rests entirely on circumstantial evidence. Therefore, before entering the discussion about the case of the appellant and the submissions of the respective counsel, it will be worthwhile to briefly state the principles relating to any conviction to be imposed based on circumstantial evidence which this court has repeatedly laid down in various decisions. It will be essential to extricate these principles in order to appreciate the approach made by the trial court as well as the high court while convicting the appellant based on such circumstantial evidence. It is right that in such cases, the prosecution must establish a complete chain of circumstances consistent only with the guilt of the accused and inconsistent with any other hypothesis.